The sausages sizzling in your frying pan this morning might contain less than 50% actual meat. The rest is a mixture of mechanically recovered scraps, rusk filler, water, and additives that would make a butcher from 50 years ago walk out in disgust. But the companies selling them to you do not want you thinking too hard about what is really inside that casing. Britain has a proud sausage tradition going back centuries. Proper bangers were made by butchers who knew their craft, using quality cuts, natural casings, and simple seasonings. Walk into any supermarket today, and you will find shelves packed with products that share the name but not the integrity. These are not sausages in any traditional sense. They are engineered meat products designed to hit the lowest possible price point while keeping just enough flavor to keep you buying. Over the next few minutes, we are pulling back the curtain on 8 of the most popular sausage brands in the UK. Some of these names have been in British kitchens for generations. Others are supermarket-owned brands that millions of families buy every week without questioning what they are actually eating. What we found is not just disappointing, it is genuinely disturbing. From shockingly low meat content to controversial additives, from environmental destruction to animal welfare nightmares, these sausages represent everything that has gone wrong with British food. Number 8. Tesco Everyday Value Pork Sausages. Let's start with the obvious target, the bottom-of-the-barrel budget option that makes no pretense of quality. This is a budget product. Tesco Everyday Value sausages contain 42% pork. Read that again. Less than half of what you're eating is actually the meat named on the package. So what's the other 58%? Water, rusk made from wheat flour, pork fat, potato starch, salt, dextrose, stabilizers, preservatives, and flavorings. You are paying for sausages but receiving a product that is predominantly filler, held together with additives and pumped full of water to increase weight. Here is how the industry works at this price point. The pork used is not premium cuts. It is mechanically recovered meat, which means processors take a carcass already stripped of valuable cuts and use high-pressure systems to force off every remaining scrap of meat, along with connective tissue, gristle, and whatever else comes off the bone. This slurry is then mixed with fat, water, and cheap fillers to create something that can legally be called a sausage. The mechanically recovered meat is what drives the low cost. The rusk serves one purpose: bulk. It is the cheapest way to make the product larger without adding expensive meat. Wheat flour costs pennies compared to pork. By loading these sausages with rusk, Tesco can sell them for under £2 per kilogram while still making a profit. But you are not getting a bargain. You are getting 42% of what you paid for and 58% worthless filler. The stabilizers and preservatives extend shelf life far beyond what any traditional sausage would maintain. Real sausages made by a butcher last a few days. These last weeks because they are packed with sodium nitrite and other preservatives that prevent bacterial growth but also contribute to health concerns when consumed regularly. Sodium nitrite is a common preservative in these products. What really bothers us is not that this product exists. Budget options will always have a place. What bothers us is the deception. These are marketed as pork sausages, displayed in the meat section, and sold to families who think they are buying protein for breakfast when they are really buying processed filler with some pork mixed in. The people choosing these are often families already struggling financially, being systematically sold the lowest quality food at the lowest prices. Number 7. Richmond Thick Sausages. Now we are getting into territory where people genuinely believe they are buying decent quality. Richmond is one of the biggest sausage brands in the UK, with massive marketing budgets and prominent supermarket placement. They are not positioned as budget rubbish. They are positioned as reliable, family-friendly, the sausages you grab without thinking twice. Richmond Thick Sausages contain 50% pork. Slightly better than Tesco Everyday Value, but still half filler. For a brand with this level of market presence and pricing that is not particularly cheap, 50% meat content is insulting. The remaining 50% is water, rusk, pork fat, salt, stabilizers including E450 and E451, preservatives, dextrose, spices, and flavorings. The stabilizers E450 and E451 are diphosphates and triphosphates, used to retain water in processed meat products. This allows manufacturers to inject water into the meat, increasing weight and therefore profit, while these chemicals prevent the water from leaking back out during storage and cooking. You are essentially paying meat prices for chemically retained water. But here is where Richmond's story gets more interesting. In 2018, Richmond sausages were involved in a major recall after customers found pieces of blue plastic inside their sausages. This was not an isolated incident. There were multiple reports across different batches. The Food Standards Agency issued warnings. Families who had served these sausages to their children had to throw away entire meals. The company blamed a production line issue and issued apologies. But this incident revealed the scale and speed of Richmond's manufacturing process. These sausages are made in such enormous quantities, with so much automation, that quality control becomes nearly impossible. When you are producing millions of sausages at industrial scale, contamination becomes more likely. Richmond is owned by Kerry Group, an Irish food conglomerate with annual revenue exceeding €7 billion. They have the resources to make better sausages. They choose not to because higher meat content and better ingredients would reduce their profit margins. They have calculated that most consumers do not read labels carefully, do not question meat percentages, and will keep buying based on brand recognition and price. If you are finding this useful, subscribing would really help us continue investigating what is actually in the food we all buy without thinking. We are digging into the products that feed millions of British families every week, and what we are finding is not pretty. Number 6. Wall's Classic Pork Sausages. Another massive brand with heritage dating back over a century. Wall's started as a butcher shop in 1786, building a reputation on quality meat products. Today they are owned by Unilever, one of the largest consumer goods corporations in the world, and their sausages reflect the priorities of corporate food manufacturing rather than traditional butchery. Wall's Classic Pork Sausages contain 60% pork. We're finally above the halfway mark, but for a brand trading on butcher heritage and charging premium prices, 60% is still disappointing. The remaining 40% includes water, rusk, pork fat, salt, dextrose, stabilizers, E450 and E451, preservatives E221 and E223, spices and flavorings. The preservatives here deserve attention. E221 is sodium sulfite. E223 is sodium metabisulfite. These are sulfiting agents used to prevent discoloration and extend shelf life. But sulfites can trigger severe reactions in sensitive individuals, including asthma attacks, skin rashes, and digestive issues. Some people have sulfite sensitivity without realizing it, experiencing symptoms they cannot trace to a specific cause. Wall's also uses mechanically recovered pork in their lower-tier products, though their classic range claims to use selected cuts. But selected by whom, using what criteria? The meat industry's definition of quality differs drastically from what consumers imagine when they see that word on packaging. What is particularly frustrating about Wall's is the cynical use of heritage branding. Their packaging features traditional imagery, references to their long history, and positioning that suggests old-fashioned quality. Walk into a Wall's production facility and you will see nothing old-fashioned about it. Massive industrial lines producing thousands of sausages per hour, automated mixing and filling systems, and ingredient sourcing that prioritizes cost over quality at every decision point. Unilever's business model is volume and margin. They need Wall's to produce enormous quantities at specific profit margins to justify the brand's place in their portfolio. Quality ingredients and traditional methods do not fit that model, so they maintain the heritage branding while gutting everything that heritage once represented. Number 5. Sainsbury's Taste the Difference Cumberland Sausages. Now we are talking about products where people really believe they are buying quality. Sainsbury's Taste the Difference range is positioned as premium, sold at premium prices, and marketed with imagery suggesting artisan production and superior ingredients. Surely these are better. These sausages contain 85% pork. Finally, a respectable meat percentage. But before we celebrate, let's examine what that actually means. The pork used still is not transparently sourced. British pork sounds reassuring until you realize it could mean pigs raised in intensive indoor units, never seeing daylight, fed the cheapest possible grain, and slaughtered at the youngest age that produces marketable meat. The Cumberland designation is particularly misleading. Traditional Cumberland sausages are made with coarsely chopped pork, distinctive peppery seasoning, and formed into a continuous spiral rather than linked. They are a protected regional specialty, but supermarkets have been allowed to use the Cumberland name for products that bear only a superficial resemblance to the authentic article. Sainsbury's version contains pork, rusk, water, salt, spices including white pepper, preservatives, and dextrose. The inclusion of rusk in a supposed premium product is telling. Even at this price point, with premium branding, they still add cheap filler to boost margins. But the real issue with these sausages is sustainability fraud. Sainsbury's markets their Taste the Difference range with countryside imagery and implications of higher animal welfare standards. Unless sausages specifically state organic, free-range, or outdoor bred, you are getting pork from intensive farming systems. British pig farming has become increasingly concentrated and industrialized. Most pigs are raised indoors in crowded conditions, on slatted floors, never accessing outdoor space. Sows are kept in farrowing crates where they cannot turn around. The antibiotic use in these systems is substantial because keeping animals healthy in such conditions requires constant pharmaceutical intervention. When you buy Sainsbury's Taste the Difference Cumberland sausages, you are not supporting traditional farming. You are supporting industrial agriculture with better marketing. The premium you are paying is not going to farmers raising pigs in better conditions. It is going to Sainsbury's profit margins and the branding budget that convinced you these sausages were worth the extra cost. Number 4. Herta Frankfurters. Let's shift away from traditional British bangers and talk about a product that has become ubiquitous in UK supermarkets and children's lunchboxes, despite being one of the most processed meat products available. Herta Frankfurters are heat-treated sausages that do not even require cooking, which should immediately raise questions about what has been done to them. They contain mechanically separated chicken and pork, not regular cuts of meat. Mechanically separated means high-pressure processes force every last scrap of meat off bones after primary cuts have been removed, producing a paste-like slurry that is then emulsified with water, salt, potato starch, dextrose, stabilizers. E450 and E451, antioxidants E301 and E331, preservatives E250, and flavorings. The preservative E250 is sodium nitrite, one of the most controversial additives in processed meat. It prevents botulism growth and gives processed meat its characteristic pink color. Without it, frankfurters would be an unappetizing gray. But sodium nitrite converts to nitrosamines in your body, compounds classified as probable carcinogens. The World Health Organization has specifically linked processed meats with nitrites to increased colorectal cancer risk. Does eating one frankfurter give you cancer? Obviously not. But these are marketed to children, sold in packages of 10 or more, positioned as convenient lunchbox protein, and consumed by some families multiple times per week. That cumulative exposure matters, especially for children whose bodies are still developing. Herta is owned by Nestlé, the largest food company in the world, with a corporate history that includes baby formula scandals in developing countries and ongoing disputes over water rights. Their approach to frankfurters reflects a broader philosophy: make products that are maximally convenient, maximally shelf-stable, and maximally profitable, with health and quality as secondary concerns at best. The sodium content in these frankfurters is also outrageous. 2 frankfurters contain around 1.5 grams of salt. That is a quarter of an adult's daily recommended intake from just 2 small sausages. For children, whose salt recommendations are even lower, this represents an even larger percentage of what they should consume in an entire day. Parents buy these thinking they are providing quick protein for their kids. In reality, they are feeding them mechanically recovered meat paste, held together with stabilizers, preserved with controversial chemicals, and loaded with salt. All in a product that has been so heavily processed and heat-treated that it does not even require cooking. Number 3. Porkinson's pork sausages. This brand might be less familiar to some, but it represents a growing category of sausages that have attracted serious criticism from animal welfare organizations and environmental groups. Porkinson's sources pork from intensive farming operations across Eastern Europe, prioritizing cost above virtually every other consideration. Their standard pork sausages contain 65% pork, rusk, water, salt, stabilizers, preservatives, and flavorings. The meat percentage is moderate, but the sourcing is where this brand becomes genuinely problematic. Investigations by animal welfare groups have traced Porkinson's supply chain to pig farms in Eastern Europe with documented welfare violations. We are talking about operations where pigs are kept in overcrowded conditions with minimal space, poor ventilation, and high stress levels. These are not abstract concerns. When animals are raised in chronic stress, it affects meat quality, increases disease risk, and requires heavier antibiotic use to keep the animals alive until slaughter weight. Porkinson's also has one of the worst environmental records in the industry. Industrial pig farming produces enormous quantities of waste. The manure from thousands of pigs concentrated in one location creates nitrogen runoff that pollutes waterways, contributes to dead zones in aquatic ecosystems, and produces greenhouse gas emissions comparable to driving thousands of miles. The company has faced multiple fines for environmental violations, including illegal waste discharge and exceeding permitted pollution levels. But these fines are calculated into their business model. It is cheaper to pay occasional penalties than to invest in proper waste management systems. When you buy Porkinson's sausages, you are not just making a poor health choice. You are supporting a business model built on animal suffering and environmental destruction. The low prices are not because they are more efficient. They exist because the company has externalized every possible cost onto animals, ecosystems, and local communities unfortunate enough to live near their supplier operations. Number 2. Asda Butcher's Selection. Pork sausages. Asda markets a premium sausage line with butcher imagery and claims of superior quality. The Butcher's Selection branding is pure fiction. No actual butcher is involved, and no traditional butchery skills are being applied. This is industrial meat processing, dressed up with rustic fonts on the packaging. These sausages contain 70% pork, rusk, water, salt, dextrose, stabilizers, E450 and E451, preservatives, E221, spices, and flavorings. The meat content is reasonable, but Asda has been repeatedly criticized for poor welfare standards in their pork supply chain. Multiple investigations have documented issues at farms supplying Asda. In 2019, footage emerged from an Asda supplier showing pigs with severe injuries, untreated wounds, and living in conditions that violated even the minimal legal standards. Dead piglets were left in pens with living animals. Sick pigs were not receiving veterinary care. Overcrowding exceeded permitted densities. Asda responded with a corporate statement saying it took the allegations seriously and would investigate, and the company continued sourcing from the same supplier after what it called corrective measures. The truth is this: when you are selling sausages at Asda price points while maintaining corporate profit margins, there is limited money left for animal welfare. The farms supplying supermarkets operate on razor-thin margins themselves, forced to cut every possible cost to meet the prices supermarkets demand. Animal welfare is what gets sacrificed. The disconnect between the marketing and the reality is staggering, and it is intentional. Most consumers will never visit a pig farm and will make purchasing decisions based on packaging imagery rather than reality. Number 1. The worst sausage brand in the UK is Cookstown. You might not recognize the name immediately, but Cookstown is one of the largest sausage manufacturers in the UK, supplying both retail brands and food service operations. Their products end up in hotels, cafeterias, and lower-tier restaurants across the country. This is industrial sausage production at its absolute worst. Cookstown sausages can contain as little as 42% meat, with some budget lines dropping even lower. But the meat percentage is almost beside the point compared to the broader issues with this company. In 2019, Cookstown was at the center of a major food fraud investigation. Authorities discovered they were mislabeling country of origin, selling pork from multiple sources as British, and falsifying documentation about supplier farms. This was not a simple paperwork error. This was systematic fraud designed to charge premium prices for inferior imported pork while claiming British origin. The investigation revealed extensive records manipulation, with the company maintaining two separate sets of documentation, one accurate for internal use and one falsified for regulatory submission. The scandal got worse. Further investigation revealed serious hygiene violations at Cookstown facilities. Inspectors found evidence of pest infestation, inadequate temperature controls, and cross-contamination risks between raw and processed products. The company was forced to implement extensive corrective measures and faced significant fines, though many argued the penalties were not nearly severe enough given the scale of the violations. Cookstown's labor practices have also attracted criticism. Investigations found they were employing workers through agencies that were not properly checking immigration status, paying below minimum wage, and maintaining unsafe working conditions. Workers reported pressure to keep production lines running even when equipment was malfunctioning, leading to multiple injury incidents. This pattern points to systemic worker exploitation. The environmental record is equally damning. Cookstown operates facilities producing enormous quantities of meat waste and effluent. They have been fined repeatedly for exceeding permitted discharge levels, releasing untreated waste into water systems, and failing to properly manage the environmental impact of their scale of production. What makes Cookstown the worst is not just one issue. It is the complete package of fraud, welfare failures, environmental destruction, worker exploitation, and quality problems. This is a company that cuts corners at every opportunity, prioritizes profit over every other consideration, and treats consumers, animals, workers, and the environment with equal contempt. The truly disturbing part is that Cookstown supplies own brand sausages for several major UK retailers. When you buy the cheapest sausages from certain supermarkets, there is a reasonable chance you are getting Cookstown products with the retailer's branding. Supermarkets maintain plausible deniability by going through distributors and contract manufacturers, but the product is the same. 8 sausage brands, 8 different varieties of disappointment, fraud, and corner cutting. From low meat content to animal welfare disasters, from environmental destruction to food fraud, these products represent everything wrong with industrialized meat production. British sausages once meant something. They were made by butchers who knew their trade, using quality cuts, natural casings, and honest ingredients. What we have now is industrial meat slurry, pumped full of water and fillers, preserved with controversial chemicals, and sold with marketing that bears no resemblance to the reality of how these products are made. The companies making these sausages are betting you will not read labels, will not question meat percentages, and will not think too hard about what 42% pork really means. They are counting on brand loyalty, low prices, and convenience to override any concerns about quality or ethics. But you have choices. Look for sausages from butchers who will tell you exactly where their pork comes from and what is in the casing. Choose products with high meat content and short ingredient lists. Support farmers raising pigs in decent conditions with outdoor access. Or accept that real sausages cost more because they contain real meat raised by people who care about more than just profit margins. This is not about being perfect, it is about refusing to accept that industrial meat slurry is normal or acceptable. It is about demanding transparency, quality, and basic honesty from an industry that has been lying to us for decades. If this investigation opened your eyes to what is really in the sausages millions of families buy every week, subscribing would really help us continue this work. We are committed to exposing the truth about everyday products, and there is so much more to uncover. Let us know in the comments which sausage brands you are avoiding now and whether you have found better alternatives.